fortunate to be married to a printer, so I have copies so you can take it home. It tells you exactly what I'm going to tell you today and what I might forget to tell you. So I'm Amy, I'm from Maryland. This is my daughter Helen, and Thomas is the 16-year-old boy running around. And we've done this several times, and I always do it from scratch. I usually don't save the mothers. It's just, you know, it's a lot of, I have 6 children, so less mess, easy, fast. So I found, start with equipment, that at some point you're going to want to strain off the liquid from the apples. So I found that these little pitchers that they sell for like $4 or $5 at the Walmart or the other big department stores are very handy, because I can just put cheesecloth, a strainer under there, open it up, strain off all the water, and then all I have to do is chuck the apples. So to make the best apple cider, they recommend that you do a mixture of different types of apples. Sweet, tart, semi-sweet. This happens to be the apples that were in my refrigerator that the children haven't eaten, and they won't eat now because they look a little wrinkly. You can also use the peels and the cores if you make applesauce. And I have an apple tree in our backyard that is beyond saving. I still get apples on it, but they're really ugly, and so I've used those apples before because I don't spray that tree, and so I know that those apples are completely, you know, organic. So what you want to do is you want to take about a 1-gallon jar and fill your jar half full with apples. It could be the apple peels from apple pies and the cores. It can be, this happens to be just chopped up apples. And there's 3 different kinds of apples in here, and they recommend the largest is about an inch piece. And so what you want to do is you want to take that and you want to take some sort of filtered water, or water that you've boiled, water that won't have any chance of growing any bacteria that you don't want, or contaminants. And you also want to have your jars clean and sterile as possible. So basically, take chopped up apples and you fill your jar, not quite to the top, but about 2 to 3 inches from the top. And then you can use honey, you can use cane sugar. I just happened to forget sugar, and I stayed at my sister's house last night, and I said, I need a cup of sugar, and so she gave me a cup of sugar. And so basically, you pour about a cup of sugar into your apples. You would stir this very good, and then you're going to cover it with cheesecloth. I'll stir it later. Cover it with cheesecloth so that you don't get the fruit flies in there. Nice rubber band. And what you're going to do is let this sit out at room temperature, and about once a day, you go and you stir it. After about 3 or 4 days, you're going to notice that these apples that are all now floating will start sinking to the bottom. That's your sign that you've now made hard apple cider. There's alcoholic content. That's with the sugar. You're having a natural fermentation from natural bacteria that are on the apples. Now, at this point, you may have you may get mold in there, and then you know that it's not a good batch of cider. And if that's the case, that's where having a mother, which Rochelle brought, mothers, that if you want you can get a baggie and take one. After you get to a point where the cider is now hard cider, you'd strain off, as I said, and that's why I like these jars. You strain off the liquid into a clean 1-gallon jar, and then you're going to put the cheesecloth back over, and then you're just going to let it set. And 3 to 4 weeks later, you'll have a light yellow, it almost looks like a bodily fluid that would come out of yellow, and it'll start smelling like vinegar. I usually keep mine in my laundry room because it's kind of nice and warm in there, and other people don't go in there, and the children will be like, what's going on in the laundry room? It stinks in there, because it's the apple cider smell. And then as you let it set, you're going to get, at that time when there's no apples in there, you're going to get this film that starts to form. Sometimes it forms on the top, sometimes it forms in the middle, sometimes it forms on the bottom. That's what's called your mother. And it's the natural film of bacteria that's changing. It's the alcohol in here to acetic acid or vinegar. And after a while, your vinegar, if you let it set, will just keep getting more amber, more sort of that brown, yellow, this color. And then what you do is you taste it, and at the point where you think it's acidic enough, you can put it in the refrigerator, and that slows the fermentation. The best thing about this is you've gone to probably the health food stores or whatnot, they'll have the organic unpasteurized apple cider vinegar. That's what this is. So it has natural probiotics in it from as long as you don't heat it or pasteurize it. If at some point it's too acidic and you don't want it to go any further, you can pasteurize it. So that's basically how you make apple cider vinegar. You can either, at some point you can just put a mother in there and let that take over, and that makes sure that you get the right bacteria, or you can just do it naturally like I do from start to finish. I have it all written down. You can take a flyer. Does anybody have any questions? I also wanted to tell you, I brought with me, and I'll tell you about it now, we have what's called Egyptian walking onions. And it's a perennial onion. And these happen to be like the garlic with the scapes that come off the top. They're kind of wilted. This is where it came up off the top, and these are the little seeds of the new onions. They'll come up every year, and I would plant, if you take some, you only need like 3 or so. If you plant some, even though they look sad, they'll grow. It's like putting an onion set in. Put it in an area that you don't care, because they spread kind of like mint. Not as fast and prolific as mint, but they spread. What happens is the onion grows this seed head at the top, and when it gets too heavy, it'll fall over and it'll reseed itself. So, but what you can do is you can eat these, you can eat the big bulb underneath the ground, and you can also pop these off and plant them, and then you can have green onions anytime all through the year. I happen to have the reddish variety. I got that from a lady I know. And so basically you plant them and you'll have onions that come up every spring. You can use